Jeremiah chapter 27. In the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah son of Josiah, the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah in this way: Make for yourselves ropes and a yoke and put them on your neck. Then send word to the kings of Edom, Moab, Ammon, Tyre and Sidon through their ambassadors who have come to Jerusalem to see Zedekiah king of Judah. Give them these instructions for their masters. Yahweh, God of hosts, tells you what you ought to say to your masters. By means of my great power and mighty deeds, I made the earth, as well as the people and animals that inhabit it, and I give them to whomever I wish. Now I have given all these lands into the hands of my steward Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and I will even make the beasts of the field subject to him. All nations will serve him, his son and his grandson, until the time for his land comes, and then he will be overpowered by powerful nations and great kings. As for the nation or kingdom that refuses to serve Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, I will punish it with the sword, famine and plague, word of Yahweh, until I completely wipe it out. Hence, you must no longer pay attention to your prophets, diviners, interpreters of dreams, astrologers or sorcerers, who say that you must not submit yourselves to the king of Babylon. For they are prophets of lies, which will cause you to be finally driven from your land. I myself will drive you out, and you will perish. But the nation that submits to the yoke of the king of Babylon and serves him, that nation I will leave in its own land, word of Yahweh, to till it and live there. Then I gave the same message to King Zedekiah of Judah. Place your neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon. Serve him and his people, and you will live. Why should you and your people die by the sword, famine and plague, as Yahweh has threatened any nation that will not serve the king of Babylon? Do not listen to the prophets when they say, You will not have to serve the king of Babylon, for they are deceiving you with their prophecies. I did not send them, says Yahweh, and they falsely use my name in their prophesying. Let it not be that I drive you out of your land and you perish, you and the prophets who have spoken to you. Then I spoke to the priests and the people. Yahweh tells you not to listen to your prophets who say, Very soon now the articles from Yahweh's house will be brought back from Babylon. They prophesy lies. Do not listen to them. Instead, serve the king of Babylon and survive. Why should this city become a ruins? If they were prophets, and if they had Yahweh's word in their hearts, they would now be praying to Yahweh, God of hosts, not to allow the objects still remaining in the house of Yahweh, and in the royal palace and in Jerusalem, to be carried off to Babylon. For Yahweh says something about the pillars, the sea, the movable stands, and the other objects still in this city, which Nebuchadnezzar did not carry off when he deported Jeconiah, son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, from Jerusalem to Babylon, together with all the nobles of Judah and Jerusalem. Yes, this is what Yahweh, the God of hosts, says about the objects remaining in the house of Yahweh and in the royal palace in Jerusalem. They will be taken to Babylon, and there they will remain until the day I deal with them. Then I will bring them back and restore them to this place. Jeremiah chapter 28. Early in the reign of Zedekiah, king of Judah, in the 5th month of the 4th year, the prophet Hananiah spoke to me. Hananiah, son of Assur, from Gibeon, proclaimed in Yahweh's house, in the presence of the priests and the people. This is what Yahweh, the God of hosts and the God of Israel, says. I will break the yoke of the king of Babylon. Within 2 years, I will bring back to this place all the objects that King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon took away from Yahweh's house and carried to Babylon. I will likewise bring back Jeconiah, son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, and all who were taken from Judah and deported to Babylon. For I will break the yoke of the king of Babylon. Word of Yahweh. Then Jeremiah replied to Hananiah in the presence of the priests and all the people. So be it. May Yahweh fulfill the words you have spoken and bring back from Babylon to this place the objects taken from the house of Yahweh and all the exiles. Yet hear now what I say in your hearing and the hearing of all the people. The prophets who came before you and me continually prophesied war, disaster, and plague to many nations and great kingdoms. So the prophet who prophesies peace will not be recognized as truly sent by Yahweh until his predictions are fulfilled. Then Hananiah took the yoke from the neck of Jeremiah and broke it. Hananiah proclaimed in the presence of all the people, Yahweh says this, in the same manner within 2 years will I break the yoke of Nebuchadnezzar from the neck of all the nations. Then Jeremiah the prophet went on his way. Sometime later, a word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah. Go and tell this to Hananiah. This is what Yahweh says. You have broken a wooden yoke, but in its place you will get a yoke of iron. For this is what Yahweh, the God of hosts and the God of Israel, says. I am placing a yoke of iron on the neck of all the nations to make them serve Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and they will serve him. I will even give him control over the wild animals. Then Jeremiah said to Hananiah, Listen, Hananiah, you have not been sent by Yahweh, and yet you have deceived these people, giving them false hope with your lies. That is why Yahweh says with regard to you, I am removing you from the face of the earth. You will die this very year because you have counseled rebellion against Yahweh. And in the 7th month of that year, Hananiah died. Jeremiah chapter 29. This is the text of the letter the prophet Jeremiah sent to the rest of the elders, to the priests, the prophets, and all the people that Nebuchadnezzar had deported from Jerusalem to Babylon. This was after King Jeconiah, the queen mother, the officials, the princes of Judah and Jerusalem, the smiths and metal workers had left Jerusalem. The letter was hand-carried by Elasah, son of Shaphan, and Gemariah, son of Hilkiah, whom Zedekiah, king of Judah, sent to King Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon. It said, This is what Yahweh, God of hosts and God of Israel, says to all those deported from Jerusalem to Babylon, build houses and live in them, plant gardens and eat what they produce, marry and have children, seek wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, so that they too will have children. While there increase in number, do not decrease. Pull yourselves together for the welfare of the land to which I have sent you, and intercede on its behalf as you pray to Yahweh, for its welfare will be your welfare. This is what Yahweh says. When the 70 years allowed to Babylon have been completed, I will come to you and fulfill my promise of restoring you back to this place. For I know what my plans for you are, plans to save you and not to harm you, plans to give you a future and to give you hope. And Yahweh says, when you call on me, I will listen. You will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart. For Yahweh says, I will let myself be found by you, and I will gather you from among all the nations and from all the places where I have driven you, and bring you back to the place from which I sent you into exile. Indeed, you are trusting in prophets, allegedly raised for you by Yahweh in Babylon. But this is the word of Yahweh. Do not be deceived by the prophets and seers who are among you. Do not believe in their dreams or be confident in their illusions. For I did not send them, and they take advantage of my name to foretell lies. As for the king who sits on the throne of David, and all the people who live in this city, your kinsfolk, who did not go into exile with you, thus says Yahweh, God of hosts, I am sending sword, famine, and plague against them. I will make them like rotten figs, so rotten they cannot be eaten. I will pursue them with sword, famine, and plague. They will be a horror for all the kingdoms of the earth, a curse, an abomination, a sign of desolation, mockery, and ridicule among all the nations where I scattered them. For they did not heed my words when I sent them again and again, my servants the prophets. They refused to pay attention. As for you exiles, whom I sent away from Jerusalem to Babylon, hear the word of Yahweh. This is what Yahweh, the God of hosts and the God of Israel says concerning Ahab, son of Kolaiah, and Zedekiah, son of Maaseiah, who prophesy lies in my name. I will hand them over to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and he will slay them before your eyes. This will give rise to a curse widely used by the captives from Judah in Babylon. May the Lord treat you like Zedekiah and Ahab, who were roasted in the fire by the king of Babylon. For they have acted outrageously. They have committed adultery with their neighbors' wives, and have used my name to proclaim lies which I did not command them. I know it and have witnessed it, declares Yahweh. After that, Shemaiah of Nehelam sent letters in his own name to all the people in Jerusalem and to Zephaniah, son of Maaseiah, the priest, and to all the priests, saying, Yahweh has made you priest in place of Jehoiada, to be in charge in the house of Yahweh, to arrest every mad prophet and put them in the stocks and neck irons. So why have you not rebuked Jeremiah of Anathoth, a would-be prophet in your midst? In this role, he sent a message to us in Babylon. You will be there for a long time. Build houses and live in them. Plant gardens and eat their produce. When Zephaniah the priest read this letter in the hearing of the prophet Jeremiah, the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah. Send this message to all the exiles. This is what Yahweh says concerning Shemaiah of Nehelam. Shemaiah prophesied, although I did not send him, and he made you trust in lies. Because of that, I will punish Shemaiah and his descendants. None of them will live to witness the blessings I will bestow on my people. For he incited my people to rebel against Yahweh. Jeremiah chapter 30. This is another word that came to Jeremiah from Yahweh. Yahweh, God of Israel, says, Write in a book all that I have communicated to you, for the days are coming when I shall bring my captive people Israel and Judah back to the land I gave to their ancestors as their inheritance. These are words spoken by Yahweh to Israel. We have heard cries of fear, terror, and not peace. Ask and see. Does a man bear children? Then why do I see every strong man with his hands on his hips like a woman in labor? Every face turned a ghastly color. How terrible that day! There is none to equal it. It is a time of distress for Jacob, but he will be saved. On that day, declares Yahweh of hosts, I will break the yoke around his neck and burst his bonds, that strangers may no longer enslave them. They will instead serve Yahweh their God, and David their king, whom I will raise up for them. Yahweh says, Fear not, Jacob my servant. Be not dismayed, Israel, for I will rescue you and your descendants from that far-off land where you are captive. Jacob shall return and know peace, molested by no one. I am with you to save you. I will utterly destroy the nations where you are scattered. You alone shall not be destroyed, but I will discipline you justly and not let you go unpunished. Yahweh says, Your wound is incurable, your injury is grievous. There is no one to plead your cause. There is a remedy for an ulcer, but no healing for you. All your lovers have forgotten you. They care nothing for you. For I struck you as an enemy does, with a cruel punishment, because of your great guilt and the wickedness of your sin. Why cry out now that you are hurt? Is there no cure for your pain? Because of your great crime and grievous sin, I have done this to you. Yet all who devour you will be devoured. Your oppressors will be taken captive. Your plunderers will be plundered, and those who despise you will be despised. Because you were called outcast, Zion, for whom no one cares, I will restore you to health and heal your wounds, says Yahweh. Yahweh says, I will restore my people into Jacob's tents and have pity on his dwellings. The city will be rebuilt over its ruins, and the palace restored on its proper place. From them will come songs of praise and the sound of merrymaking. I will multiply them, and they shall not be few. I will bestow honor on them, and they shall not be despised. Their children will be as before, and their community will be established before me. I will ask their oppressors to account. Their leader will be one of themselves. Their ruler shall emerge from their midst. I will bring him close to me, for who would dare to approach me? You shall be my people, and I shall be your God. See the storm of Yahweh bursting forth in fury. Like the turmoil of a hurricane, it sweeps down on the head of the wicked. The fierce wrath of Yahweh will not turn away until he has done and accomplished the purpose of his heart. In the latter days, you will understand this. Jeremiah chapter 31. Yahweh declares that when that time comes, He will be the God of all the families of Israel, and they will be His people. Thus says Yahweh, the people who survived the sword have found grace in the desert. As Israel was seeking for his rest, Yahweh appeared from afar, saying, I have loved you with a love everlasting, so I have kept for you my mercy. I will restore you again, and you shall be rebuilt, O Virgin Israel. You will take up your tambourines and go out dancing joyfully. You will plant vineyards again on the hills of Samaria, and the farmers who plant them will enjoy their fruit. There shall be a day when watchmen will call out on the hills of Ephraim, Come, let us go to Zion, to Yahweh our God. For Yahweh says this, Shout with joy for Jacob, rejoice for the greatest of nations. Proclaim your praise and say, Yahweh has saved his people, the remnant of Israel. Look, I will bring them back from the land of the north, gather them from the ends of the earth, the lame and the blind, mothers and women in labor, a great throng will return. They went away weeping. They will return in joy. I will lead them by the streams of water on a level path so that no one will stumble. For I am Israel's father, and Ephraim is my firstborn. Hear the word of Yahweh, O nations. Proclaim it on distant coastlands. He who scattered Israel will gather them and guard them as a shepherd guards his flock. For Yahweh has ransomed Jacob and redeemed him from the land of his conqueror. They shall come shouting for joy while ascending Zion. They will come streaming to Yahweh's blessings. The grain, the new wine, and the oil, the young of the flocks and herds, they will be like a well-watered garden. No more will they be afflicted. Maidens will make merry and dance, young men and old as well. I will turn their mourning into gladness. I will give them comfort and joy for sorrow. I will fill the priests with abundance and satisfy my people with my bounty. This is Yahweh's word. Thus speaks Yahweh. In Ramah, a voice of mourning and great weeping is heard. Rachel wailing for her children and refusing to be consoled, for her children are no more. Yahweh says this to her, Weep no more and wipe the tears of your eyes. Your sorrow will have redress. They will come back from the enemy's land. There is hope for your descendants. Your children will return to their own borders. I heard Ephraim saying in grief, You disciplined me like an untamed calf, and I have been disciplined. Bring me back, and I will return. For you are my God, my Lord. Yes, I strayed, but I have repented. Now I understand, and I beat my breast. I bear the disgrace of my youth, and I blush with shame and humiliation. Is not Ephraim my favored son, the child in whom I delight? Often have I threatened him, but I still remember him, and my heart yearns for him. I must show him mercy, declares Yahweh. Set up road signs, put up guideposts, focus your attention to the highway, the road by which you went. Return, O Virgin Israel, return to these cities of yours. How long will you remain wandering, O unfaithful daughter? Yahweh is creating something new on earth. The woman finds her husband again. These are words of Yahweh, God of hosts and God of Israel. When I bring back the captives to the land of Judah and its towns, the people will once more use the expression, Yahweh bless you, O dwelling of righteousness, holy mountain. All Judah and its towns, the farmer and those who move about with their herds, will live there in peace. I will refresh the weary and lift up the downhearted. Then I awoke and looked around. My sleep had been peaceful. The days are coming, this is the word of Yahweh, when I shall sow the people of Israel and the people of Judah with the seed of man and of beasts. It will happen that just as I watched over them to uproot and overthrow, to destroy and bring disaster, so shall I likewise build and plant. Word of Yahweh. No longer will it be said, the parents have eaten sour grapes, and the children's teeth are set on edge. Instead, everyone will die because of their own sin. Whoever eats sour grapes will have his teeth set on edge. The time is coming, it is Yahweh who speaks, when I will forge a new covenant with the people of Israel and the people of Judah. It will not be like the one I made with their ancestors when I took them by the hand and led them out of Egypt. For they broke my covenant, although I was their Lord. This is the covenant I shall make with Israel after that time. I will put my law within them and write it on their hearts. I will be their God, and they will be my people. And they will not have to teach each other, neighbor or brother, saying, Know the Lord, because they will all know me, from the greatest to the lowliest. For I will forgive their wrongdoing, and no longer remember their sin. This is the word of Yahweh. He who gives the sun for light during the day, and orders the moon and the stars to give light at night. He who stirs the sea and makes the waves roar, and who is called Yahweh, God of hosts. Only if these laws vanish from my sight, says Yahweh, will the descendants of Israel cease to be a nation before me. Only when the skies above are measured and the foundations of the earth are found below, only then will I reject the descendants of Israel because of what they have done. Word of Yahweh. Behold, the days are coming when the city will be rebuilt for Yahweh from the tower of Hananel to the corner gate, and the measuring tape will stretch from there to the hill of Gareb and then turn to Goa. The whole valley where dead bodies and ashes are thrown, and all the fields as far as the brook of Kidron, and the corner of the horse gate on the east, will be holy to Yahweh. Never again will the city be uprooted, never again destroyed. Jeremiah chapter 32. This is the word that came to Jeremiah from Yahweh in the 10th year of Zedekiah's reign as king of Judah, the 18th year of Nebuchadnezzar. At that time, the army of the king of Babylon was besieging Jerusalem, and the prophet Jeremiah was imprisoned in the God's courtyard of the royal palace of Judah. Zedekiah, king of Judah, had him shut up after saying to him, "Why do you prophesy in the name of Yahweh as you do? Yes, you said, I am going to hand this city to the king of Babylon, who will take it. And King Zedekiah will not escape from the Chaldeans. He will be delivered into the power of the king of Babylon. Speak face to face to him and see him with his own eyes. Zedekiah will be brought to Babylon, where he will remain until I deal with him. In any case, your fight against the Chaldeans is hopeless." So at that time, the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah. "Hanamel, son of your uncle Shallum, is going to visit you and ask you to buy his field at Anathoth, as it is your right to do so." Then my cousin Hanamel came to me in the courtyard of the gods and said, "Purchase my field at Anathoth, since you have the right of possession and the redemption is yours. Buy it for yourself." I then understood this was the word of Yahweh, and I bought the field from Hanamel, and I weighed out the silver for it, 17 shekels of silver. Then I signed and sealed the deed, had it witnessed, and the silver weighed on the scales. Then I took the deed of purchase, the sealed copy containing terms and conditions, and the open copy. I gave the deed of purchase to Baruch, son of Neriah, son of Maaseiah, in the presence of Hanamel, my uncle, and the witnesses who signed the deed, and before all the Jews who were sitting in the court of the gods. Then in their presence I commanded Baruch, "This is what Yahweh, the God of hosts and the God of Israel, says. Take these documents, both the sealed and the unsealed copies of the deed of purchase. Place them in an earthenware jar, so that they may last a long time. For Yahweh, God of hosts and God of Israel, says this: houses, fields, and vineyards will again be bought in this land." When I had given the deed of purchase to Baruch, son of Neriah, I prayed to Yahweh, "Ah, Lord Yahweh, you have made the heavens and the earth with your great power and mighty deeds. Nothing is impossible to you. You show mercy to thousands, but bring the punishment for the parents' sins on their children. Great and mighty Yahweh, God of hosts, is your name. You are great in planning and mighty in deeds. Your eyes follow the ways of all the humans, and you give to each one according to his conduct and the fruit of their actions. You have continually worked signs and wonders in the land of Egypt, in Israel, and among all humankind. Hence you have become famous, as we see today. You brought your people from the land of Egypt with signs and wonders, with your great power and your mighty deeds. You gave your people this land which you had promised with an oath to their ancestors, a land flowing with milk and honey. But as soon as they entered and conquered it, they did not listen to you and did not walk according to your law. They refused to do what you commanded, and you brought great misfortune on them. You see, O Yahweh, the mounds built up to take the city are reaching it, and the city exhausted by the sword, famine and plague will be given over to the Chaldeans. What you foretold has happened, as you can now see. And yet you told me, O Lord Yahweh, to buy a field with silver and have the purchase witnessed in the very days the city is falling to the Chaldeans. The word of Yahweh then came to Jeremiah. I am Yahweh, the God of all humankind. Is there anything impossible for me? Therefore, this is what Yahweh says. I am about to hand the city over to the Chaldeans and Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, who will take it. The Chaldeans who are attacking the city will come in and set it on fire. They will burn the houses where the people aroused my anger by burning incense to Baal and pouring drink offerings to foreign gods. For the people of Israel and Judah have done nothing but evil in my sight from their youth. All they did was to arouse my anger with the work of their hands. It is Yahweh who speaks. For this city has so aroused my anger and fury from the time it was built to this day, that I must remove it from my sight. It is on account of all the evil the people of Israel and Judah have done to anger me. They, their kings and princes, their priests and prophets, the people of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. They turned their backs to me and not their faces. Although I taught them time and time again, they did not listen, nor have they learned the lesson. They even put their idols in the sanctuary that houses my name to defile it. They built high places to Baal in the valley of Ben Hinnom, where they worshipped Baal and sacrificed their sons and daughters to Moloch. This I never commanded, nor did I ever think they could do such a detestable thing and so make Judah so sinful. As you say, this city, exhausted by the sword, famine and plague, will be handed over to the king of Babylon. But now listen to what Yahweh, the God of Israel, says. See, I am going to gather them from all the countries where I scattered them in my anger, fury, and great wrath. I will bring them back to this place and have them live in safety. They will be my people, and I shall be their God. I will have them think and act in another way, so that they may always fear me for their own good and the good of their children. I will forge an eternal covenant with them, by which I shall never cease to do them good, and I shall place my fear in their heart, so that they may never turn away from me. I shall rejoice in doing them good, and I shall plant them securely in this land with all my heart and soul. And Yahweh says, just as I brought great disaster on this people, so shall I bring them all the happiness I promised them. Then fields will be bought in this land, about which you say that it is a waste land without people or animals, and given over to the Chaldeans. Fields will be bought for silver, and deeds written and sealed and witnessed in the territory of Benjamin and the region around Jerusalem, in the towns of Judah, in the towns of the hill country, in the towns of Shephelah and those of the south. Yes, I will bring back their captives. Word of Yahweh. Jeremiah chapter 33. When Jeremiah was still detained in the God's court, the word of Yahweh came to him a second time. He who made the earth, who fashioned and established it, he whose name is Yahweh is speaking to you. Call me, and I shall answer. I will reveal to you great and mysterious things you have not known. For this is what Yahweh, God of Israel, says. You have seen how the houses of Jerusalem and the royal palace of Judah were demolished and used as a defense against the siege mounds in the fighting against the Chaldeans. But they have been filled with dead bodies. For I slew those people in the fury of my anger, when I no longer looked to this city because of their wickedness. However, I will apply a remedy for its healing. I will cure them and make them enjoy peace and truth. I will bring back the captives of Judah and Israel and rebuild them as before. I will cleanse them from the guilt of their sin against me and their infidelity. This city will be for me a cause of joy, praise, and glory in the sight of all the nations of the earth, when they hear of all the good I do for them. They will fear and tremble when they see all the good and all the peace I provide for them. Thus says Yahweh, you say of this city that it is a wasteland without humans or animals. But in the towns of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem, which are a ruins without people or animals, there will be heard again the sound of merriment and happiness, the song of the newlywed, and the voice of those who pray. Praise to Yahweh, God of hosts, for Yahweh is good, and his love endures forever. When I restore the fortune of the land as it was before, says Yahweh, the voice of those who sing praise in the house of Yahweh will be heard. Thus says Yahweh, God of hosts, in this place, which is a wasteland without people or animals, and in all its towns, there will once again be pastures where the shepherds will tend their flocks. In the towns of the hill country, Shephelah and the south, in the territory of Benjamin, and the villages around Jerusalem, and in the towns of Judah, flocks will pass under the hand of the one who counts them. Word of Yahweh. The days are coming when I shall fulfill the promise that I made in favor of Israel and Judah. In those days and at that time, I will cause to sprout the shoot of righteousness from David's line. He will practice justice and righteousness in the land. In those days, Judah will experience salvation and Jerusalem will live in safety. He will be called Yahweh our righteousness. For Yahweh says, David will never be without a descendant seated on the throne of Israel, nor will the priests and Levites be left without descendants to stand before me and to present burnt offerings, grain offerings, and sacrifices. The word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah as follows: If you are able to break my covenant with the day or my covenant with the night, so that night and day would not follow at their appointed times, then might my covenant with David my servant be broken. Only then would there be no descendant to reign on his throne, and no priests or Levites to minister before me. Just as the stars in the sky or the sand on the seashore cannot be counted, to the same extent shall I multiply the descendants of David and the Levites who minister before me. Again, the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah. Have you not noticed what these people say? Yahweh has rejected the 2 kingdoms he chose. So they despise my people and no longer consider them a nation. But Yahweh says, if I have not established my covenant with day and night, if I have not fixed the laws of the heavens and the earth, then I can reject the descendants of Jacob and David my servant, and not take from among them rulers for the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. For I am going to restore their fortune and show compassion on them. Jeremiah chapter 34. This was the word of Yahweh addressed to Jeremiah when Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and his army, as well as all the kingdoms of the earth that were under his dominion, and all the peoples were fighting against Jerusalem and all the cities of Judah. This is the word of Yahweh, God of Israel. Go and say this to Zedekiah, king of Judah. See, I am giving this city to the king of Babylon, and he will set it on fire. You will not escape from his hands, but will surely be captured and given over to him. You will see him face to face and speak directly to him, and you will go to Babylon. Just listen, Zedekiah, king of Judah, to the word of Yahweh. This is what Yahweh says about you. You will not be slain by the sword. No, you will die in peace. As they made funeral pyres in honor of your ancestors, former kings, so will they make a pyre in your honor and lament. Alas, my master! Word of Yahweh. Then Jeremiah the prophet gave this message to Zedekiah, king of Judah, in Jerusalem. At that time, the army of the king of Babylon was besieging Jerusalem, and the cities of Judah which were still resisting, Lachish and Azekah. These were the only fortified cities remaining in Judah. The word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah after King Zedekiah had made a treaty with all the people of Jerusalem to proclaim freedom for the slaves. Everyone was to free his Hebrew slaves, male and female, so that no fellow Jew would be kept in bondage. The princes and all the citizens agreed to this. They made a treaty and so set them free. Yet they changed their mind afterwards and brought back the slaves they had freed and used them as slaves again. Then the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah. Yahweh, the God of Israel, says this: I made a covenant with your ancestors the day I brought them out of Egypt from the house of slavery, and I said, at the end of every 7 years, you will free any Hebrews who have been sold to you and have served you for 6 years. You ought to send them free from your service. But your ancestors did not listen and paid no attention. Recently you repented and did what was right in my sight, when each one proclaimed liberty to one another, and you made a covenant with me in the house where my name rests. But now you have gone back on your word and profaned my name. You have brought back your slaves, male and female, to whom you had given complete freedom, and you have again reduced them to slavery. That is why Yahweh says, since you have not obeyed me in proclaiming freedom for your friends and neighbors, I now proclaim freedom for you, freedom to fall by the sword, plague and famine. I will make you detestable to every kingdom on earth. Those who have sinned against my covenant, who have not observed the terms of the alliance they made before me, I will liken them to the calf they cut in two and then walked between its halves. The princes of Judah and Jerusalem, the court officials, the priests, and all the people of the land who walked between the pieces of the calf, I will hand them over to their enemies. Their corpses will serve as food for the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth. Zedekiah and his officials I will give over to the hands of their enemies. You saw the army of the king of Babylon withdrawing from you, but now I am issuing an order to bring them back to this city. They will attack and capture the city and set it on fire. As for the towns of Judah, I will reduce them to a wasteland without inhabitants. Jeremiah chapter 35. A message from Yahweh came to Jeremiah in the days of Josiah's son Jehoiakim, king of Judah. Go to the Rechabite family, speak to them, and bring them to a room in the house of Yahweh. Then give them wine to drink. So I went to get Jasaniah, son of Jeremiah, son of Abbasiniah, his brothers and sons, and all the household of the Rechabites. I brought them to the house of Yahweh, into the room of the sons of Hanan, son of Igdaliah, the man of God. It was close to the room of the leaders, which is above the room of the doorkeeper, Masekah, son of Shallum. I then placed pitchers of wine and cups before the Rechabites and told them, "Drink wine." But they answered, "We don't drink wine, because our father Jonadab, son of Rechab, commanded us, 'Never drink wine, you as well as your children. Don't build a house and don't sow seeds. You shall not plant or own a vineyard. Do nothing like that, but live in tents all your days, so that you may live for a long time in the land where you dwell.' We have observed all the commands of our father Jonadab, son of Rechab, always abstaining from wine, we, our wives, our sons and daughters. We haven't built houses to live in, and we have no vineyards, fields or seeds. We live in tents, and we obey and practice all that our father Jonadab ordered us. But when King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon attacked the land, we said, 'Come, we shall go to Jerusalem to escape from the army of the Chaldeans and the army of the Arameans. This is why now we stay in Jerusalem.'" Yahweh spoke again to Jeremiah. "Yahweh, the God of hosts and the God of Israel, bids you to go and tell the people of Judah and the citizens of Jerusalem, 'Will you reject a correction and refuse what I say?' Word of Yahweh. Jonadab, son of Rechab, commanded his children not to drink wine, and his words have been observed. To this day, they have obeyed their father by not taking wine. As for you, I have spoken to you time and time again, and you have not listened to me. I have sent you my servants the prophets again and again, saying, 'Turn away from your wickedness, reform your way of life, and do not follow other gods to serve them. Then you will live in the land that I gave you and your forebears.' But you neither heeded nor listened to me. The descendants of Jonadab, son of Rechab, have carried out their father's order, but this nation has not obeyed me. Therefore, This is what Yahweh, the God of hosts and the God of Israel says. I am going to bring on Judah and on everyone living in Jerusalem all the disaster I foretold, because I spoke and they would not listen. I called and they would not respond. Then Jeremiah said to the Rechabites, This is what Yahweh, God of hosts and God of Israel says. Because you have been obedient to your father, Jonadab, and observed all his instructions, because you have acted according to his commands, because of that word of Yahweh, Jonadab shall always have a descendant to stand before me. Jeremiah chapter 36. This word from Yahweh came to Jeremiah in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah. Get a scroll and write on it all that I have spoken to you concerning Jerusalem, Judah, and all the nations, from the first day I spoke to you in the time of Josiah until this day. Perhaps when the people of Judah hear of all the afflictions I intend to send them, to make each of them turn away, they would decide to turn from their wicked ways. Hence I may forgive their wickedness and sin. Jeremiah then called Baruch, son of Neriah, and while Jeremiah dictated, Baruch wrote on the scroll all that Yahweh had said. Then Jeremiah commanded Baruch, I am in jail and cannot go to Yahweh's house. So you go to Yahweh's house on a day of fasting and read publicly all that you wrote as I dictated. Read it to all the people of Judah who come in from their towns. Perhaps they will entreat Yahweh, and each one will turn from his wickedness. For great is the wrath of Yahweh and the punishment with which he has threatened this people. So Baruch, Neriah's son, did all that the prophet Jeremiah had commanded about this reading in the house of Yahweh. In the 9th month of the 5th year of Josiah's son Jehoiakim, king of Judah, a fast before Yahweh was proclaimed to all the people in Jerusalem and all the people who came from the towns of Judah. Then in the house of Yahweh, Baruch read publicly the words of Jeremiah written in the scroll. This he did in the room of the secretary Gemariah, Shaphan's son, in the upper court at the entry of the new gate of the house of Yahweh. When Micaiah, son of Gemariah, son of Shaphan, heard all of Yahweh's words written on the scroll, he went to the secretary's room in the king's house where all the officials were sitting: Elishama the secretary, Delaiah son of Shemaiah, Elnathan son of Akbor, Gemariah son of Shaphan, Zedekiah son of Hananiah, and the rest of the officials. Micaiah told them all that he had heard when Baruch read the content of the scroll to the people. Then all the officials sent Jehudi, son of Netaniah, the son of Shelemiah, the son of Cushi, to say to Baruch, Bring the scroll from which you read to all the peoples and come. So Baruch went with the scroll in his hand. They told him to sit down and read it to them, and Baruch read it to them. When they heard all that, they gazed at one another in fear and said, We ought to tell this to the king. They then asked Baruch, May we know how you wrote that? He said, As he dictated these words, I wrote them in ink on the scroll. Then the officials instructed Baruch, Jeremiah and you have to hide, and let no one know where you are. They kept the scroll in the room of Elishama the secretary, and went to the king in the courtyard and reported all to him. The king then sent Jehudi to bring him the scroll. Jehudi brought it from Elishama's room and read it to the king and to all the officials standing around him. Now it was the 9th month, and the king was sitting in the winter palace while a fire was burning in the fire pot in front of him. Whenever Jehudi finished reading 3 or 4 columns, the king would cut them off into pieces with the secretary's knife and cast them in the fire until the whole scroll was burned. Neither the king nor his officials were afraid when they heard all these words, and they did not tear their garments. And yet Elnathan, Delaiah, and Gemariah had urged the king not to burn the scroll, but he did not listen. Instead, the king ordered Jerahmeel, a son of the king, Seraiah, son of Asriel, and Shelemiah, son of Abdeel, to arrest Baruch the secretary and Jeremiah the prophet. But Yahweh concealed them. A word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah after the king burned the scroll with the words Baruch had written as Jeremiah dictated. Take another scroll and write on it all the words that were on the first one, which Jehoiakim burned, and tell Jehoiakim this message of Yahweh. You have burned the scroll, and you said, This man dared to write that the king of Babylon will certainly destroy this land and wipe away from it men and animals. That is why Yahweh has spoken against Jehoiakim, king of Judah. Not one of his descendants will sit on the throne of David. His dead body will be exposed to the heat of the day and the chill of the night. I will ask him to account, as well as his children and his attendants, for their wickedness. I will pour out on them all the disasters, and it will be the same for the people of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem I have foretold against them, because they have paid no attention. Then Jeremiah took another scroll and gave it to Baruch son of Neriah, the secretary. He wrote on it all the words of the scroll that Jehoiakim king of Judah burned in the fire, and he added many more similar words. Jeremiah chapter 37. Josiah Zedekiah was appointed by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, to be king of Judah in the place of Jehoiakim, son of Jehoiakim. But neither he nor his attendants nor the people of the land paid attention to the words of Yahweh spoken through Jeremiah the prophet. King Zedekiah sent Jehukal, son of Shelemiah, with the priest Sehaniah, son of Maaseiah, to Jeremiah to say, Intercede for us with Yahweh our God. At that time, Jeremiah had not yet been imprisoned, and he was still going about among the people. Pharaoh's army had come out of Egypt, and when the Chaldeans heard of this, they withdrew from Jerusalem. Then the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah the prophet. Yahweh, the God of Israel, has spoken. Say this to the king of Judah, who sent you to consult me. Pharaoh's army, which was on its way to help you, is about to return to its own land, and the Chaldeans will come back and attack this city. They will capture it and set it on fire. Do not deceive yourselves by saying that the Chaldeans are not to come back, because they surely will. Even if you had defeated the whole Chaldean army, and they were left with only wounded men, they would all come out of their tents and set fire to this city. While the Chaldean army was withdrawing from Jerusalem because of the advance of Pharaoh's troops, Jeremiah left Jerusalem to go to the territory of Benjamin to receive an inheritance there. But upon reaching the Benjamin gate, he was stopped by a sentry named Erijah, son of Shelemiah, son of Hananiah, who said, "You are deserting to the Babylonians." Jeremiah answered, "There is no truth to that." But Erijah did not listen. He nabbed Jeremiah and brought him to the officials. They were so angry with Jeremiah, they beat him and locked him in the house of Jonathan, the secretary, which had been transformed into a prison. Jeremiah was put in the dungeon cells and was kept there for a number of days. Then King Zedekiah sent for him and secretly questioned him in his house. "Is there any word from Yahweh?" Jeremiah replied, "Yes, there is," and added, "You will be handed over to the king of Babylon." Then Jeremiah said to King Zedekiah, "What wrong have I done to you, to your servants, or to the people, that you should have me imprisoned? Where are your prophets who said to you, 'The king of Babylon will never come to attack you and destroy this land'? Now listen to me, my lord king. Take heed of my plea, and do not send me back to the house of Jonathan the secretary, for there I am doomed to die." So King Zedekiah ordered that Jeremiah be transferred to the God's court, and that every day he be supplied with a loaf of bread from the baker's street until there was no more bread. So Jeremiah remained in the God's court. Jeremiah chapter 38. Shephatiah son of Mattan, Gedaliah son of Pashur, son of Malchiah, heard that Jeremiah said publicly, "In the name of Yahweh, anyone who stays in the city will perish by the sword, famine, plague. But whoever surrenders to the Chaldeans will survive, although he may lose everything. For Yahweh has spoken, I have handed over this city to the king of Babylon, and he will take it." Then the officials told the king, "This man should be put to death, because he is weakening the will of the fighting men and the people left in the city. In fact, he is not out to save the people, but to do harm." King Zedekiah said, "His life is in your hands, for the king has no power against you." So they took Jeremiah and threw him into the cistern of Malchiah, the king's son, in the God's court. They lowered him by means of ropes. There was no water in the cistern, but only mud, and Jeremiah sank into the mud. Ebed-melech, an Ethiopian official of the king's house, heard that they had lowered Jeremiah in the cistern. While the king was sitting at the Benjamin gate, Ebed-melech went and spoke to him, "My lord king, these men have acted wickedly in all they did to Jeremiah the prophet. They threw him into the cistern where he will die." So the king ordered Ebed-melech the Ethiopian, "Take 3 men with you from here, and draw Jeremiah the prophet out from the cistern before he dies." Ebed-melech took the men with him and went into the king's house beneath the treasury. There he got piece of rags and old cloths, which he lowered by means of ropes to Jeremiah in the cistern. Ebed-melech said to Jeremiah, "Put the pieces of rags and old cloths under your armpits over the ropes." This Jeremiah did. Then Jeremiah was pulled up from the cistern by means of the ropes, and was brought to the God's court to stay there. King Zedekiah sent for Jeremiah the prophet and received him at the third entrance of Yahweh's house, and there said to him, I am going to ask you a question. Hide nothing from me. Jeremiah said to Zedekiah, If I tell you something, won't you put me to death? And if I advise you, will you listen to me? King Zedekiah swore secretly to Jeremiah, As Yahweh lives, who gave us a soul, I will not have you die, and I will not hand you over to those who want to kill you. Jeremiah told to Zedekiah, This is what Yahweh, God of hosts and God of Israel says. If you surrender to the officers of the king of Babylon, you will survive, and the city will not be burned. You and your household will live. But if you surrender not to the king of Babylon, this very city will be handed over to the Chaldeans, and they will set it on fire. For your part, you will not escape. King Zedekiah said to Jeremiah, I am afraid of the people of Judah who have surrendered to the Chaldeans. I fear the Chaldeans will give me over to them, and they will ill-treat me. Jeremiah said, They will not hand you over. Listen to what Yahweh says to you through me. It will be well with you, and you will live. But if you refuse to surrender, this is what Yahweh has let me see. All the women left in your palace will be handed over to the officers of the king of Babylon, and will sing this song. Your friends have deceived and overcome you. When your feet have sunk into the mud, they turn away from you. All your wives and children shall be led out to the Chaldeans, and you will not escape from them. You will be nabbed by the king of Babylon, and this city will be burned down. Then Zedekiah said to Jeremiah, Let no one know about this conversation, lest you will die. If the officials hear that I have spoken with you, and if they come to you and ask you what I spoke of to you, even though they threaten you, you will say to them, I only made a petition to the king, not to send me back to the house of Jonathan to die. All the officials came to Jeremiah and questioned him. He replied, just as the king had instructed him. And they said no more, since no one had overheard the conversation. But Jeremiah remained in the God's court until the day Jerusalem was taken. Jeremiah chapter 39. In the 10th month of the 9th year of Zedekiah, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came with his entire army, and they besieged Jerusalem. On the 9th day of the 4th month, in Zedekiah's 11th year, a breach was made in the city wall. All the officials of the king of Babylon entered and took their seats at the middle gate. Nergal-Sharezer of Samgar, Sarsekim chief officer, Nergal-Sharezer a high official, and all the officials of the king of Babylon. Upon seeing this, King Zedekiah of Judah and all the military fled from the city by night, going out by way of the king's garden, through the gate between the two walls in the direction of Arabah. But the Chaldean army chased them and caught up with Zedekiah in the plains of Jericho. They took him and brought him up to the king of Babylon at Riblah in the land of Hamath. There Nebuchadnezzar passed sentence on him. The king of Babylon slaughtered the sons of Zedekiah in his presence, and all the nobles of Judah. He gouged Zedekiah's eyes and bound him with a double bronze chain to take him to Babylon. The Chaldeans burned the king's palace along with the people's abodes, and then broke down the walls of Jerusalem. Nebuzaradan, commander of the guards, deported to Babylon the remainder of the people who stayed in the city, as well as those who had deserted to his side, and those craftsmen who were still there. As for the poorest people who owned nothing, Nebuzaradan left them at that time in the land of Judah, giving them vineyards and fields. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had given orders about Jeremiah to Nebuzaradan, chief of the guards. Take him and look after him. Do him no harm, but deal with him just as he tells you. Nebuzaradan, commander of the guards, Nebuchadnezzar, a chief officer, Nergal-Sharezer, a high official, and all the other officers of the king of Babylon sent and had Jeremiah taken from the guard's court and given over to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan. So he remained among the people. Now the word of Yahweh had come to Jeremiah while he was imprisoned in the guard's court. Go and talk to Ebed-Melech the Ethiopian. Tell him this word of Yahweh, the God of hosts, and the God of Israel. You see on that day that I am about to carry out what I have foretold in the past, disaster and not prosperity for this city. But I will save you on that day, word of Yahweh, and you will not be handed over to those whom you fear. For I will certainly save you, and you will not perish by the sword. You will be able to escape and live because you have trusted me. It is Yahweh who speaks. Jeremiah chapter 40. The word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah after Nebuzaradan, commander of the guards, had released him at Ramah, when he had taken him, bound in chains, with those to be deported from Jerusalem and Judah to Babylon. The commander of the guards took Jeremiah and said to him, Yahweh your God foretold this calamity for this place. Now he has implemented what he then said he would do, because you have sinned against him and have not listened to him. But I have been removing today the fetters of your hands and releasing you to be free. You may wish to go with me to Babylon, and I will take care of you. However, I am not obliging you if you decide not to go. You have the choice to go wherever you like in this land. Nebuzaradan added, Why don't you go back to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan? He has been appointed governor over the towns of Judah by the king of Babylon. You could stay with him among your people. Yet go wherever it seems right for you to go. The commander of the guards gave him provisions and a gift and set him on his way. And so Jeremiah went to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, who was residing at Mizpah. He stayed with him among the people who were left in the land. Now all the army chiefs in the open country with their men heard that the king of Babylon had appointed Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, to be governor over the land, and put him in charge of the men, women, and children, and the lowliest of the people who had not been deported to Babylon. They came to Gedaliah at Mizpah, Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, Johanan and Jonathan, the sons of Kareah, Seraiah, son of Tanhumeth, the sons of Ephai, the Netophathite, and Jasaniah, son of Makathite, and their men. Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, swore to them and their men, "Don't be afraid to serve the Chaldeans. Remain in the country. Serve the king of Babylon, and all will be well with you. As for me, I am based here in Mizpah, and I am your representative with the Chaldeans who settle at this place. For your part, gather wine, fruit, and oil. Store it in your vessels, and stay in the towns you have occupied." The Jews who were in Moab, Ammon, Edom, and in the other lands also learned that the king of Babylon had left a remnant of the population, and that he had placed over them Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan. All of these Jews returned from the places where they had been dispersed and came to Gedaliah at Mizpah in the land of Judah. There they gathered in wine and fruit in great quantities. Johanan, son of Kareah, and all the chiefs of guerrilla warfare came to Gedaliah at Mizpah and said, "Don't you know that Baalis, king of the Ammonites, has commissioned Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, to assassinate you?" But Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, did not believe him. Then Johanan spoke secretly to Gedaliah at Mizpah, "Let me go and kill Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, without anyone knowing. Don't allow him to kill you, lest all the Jews assembled with you be dispersed, and the rest of Judah perish." But Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, said to Johanan, son of Kareah, "Don't do that, because what you have said about Ishmael is a lie." Jeremiah chapter 41. It was the 7th month when Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, son of Elishama, a member of the royal family, who had been chief officer of the king, came with 10 men to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, at Mizpah. While they were eating together, Ishmael and the men with him stood up and slew Gedaliah with the sword, thus killing the man whom the king of Babylon had appointed governor of the land. Ishmael also killed the Jews who were with Gedaliah at Mizpah, as well as the Chaldean soldiers who were there. 2 days after the assassination of Gedaliah, and before anyone had heard of it, 80 men from Shechem, Shiloh, and Samaria arrived with beards shaved, torn clothes, and their bodies slashed, carrying offerings and incense to the house of Yahweh. Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, left Mizpah to meet them, weeping as they went. He said to them, "Come along to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam." But as soon as he came to the center of the town, Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, and the men with him killed them and threw their bodies into a cistern. 10 of these men, however, said to Ishmael, "Don't kill us, for we have provisions hidden in the country, corn, oil, barley, and honey." These Ishmael did not kill with the others. The cistern where Ishmael had thrown the corpses of these people he had killed was the large cistern built by King Asa when he had to defend himself against Baasha, king of Israel. Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, filled it with their corpses. Ishmael took captive the small population of Mizpah, the royal princesses whom Nebuzaradan, commander of the bodyguard, had left in the care of Gedaliah, Ishmael obliged them to follow him and set out for the land of the Ammonites. When Johanan, son of Kareah, and the army officers with him heard of the crimes of Ishmael, they assembled their men and set off to fight Ishmael. They caught up with him at the great pool of Gibeon. As soon as the people Ishmael had taken by force from Mizpah saw Johanan, son of Kareah, and the army officers with him, they rejoiced and turned back to join Johanan. In the meantime, Ishmael was able to flee from Johanan with 8 men and went to the Ammonites. Then Johanan and the army officers with him took the people he had rescued from Ishmael, son of Nethaniah. They were those men, women, children, and court officials that Ishmael carried off by force from Mizpah after slaying Gedaliah. Johanan brought them from Gibeon, and they stayed at Geruth Kimham near Bethlehem. They planned to go on later towards Egypt for fear of the Chaldeans, because Ishmael had slain Gedaliah, who was appointed governor of the land by the king of Babylon. Jeremiah chapter 42. Then the army officers, especially Johanan, son of Kareah, and Jesaniah, son of Hoshea, and all the people from the smallest to the greatest, came to speak to Jeremiah. Listen to our plea and pray to Yahweh our God for us, this remnant of people, because really we are few from many, as you can see. May Yahweh your God show us the way we should go and what we should do. Jeremiah the prophet answered them, I have heard you, yes. I am going to speak to Yahweh as you have requested. And whatever be the word of Yahweh, I shall let you know it without hiding anything. They said to Jeremiah, May Yahweh be a true and worthy witness against us, if we do not act according to every word that Yahweh your God will say to us through you. Whether it be good or bad for us, we will obey Yahweh our God, to whom we are sending you. So it will be well with us, for having obeyed the voice of Yahweh our God. 10 days later, the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah. He then called Johanan, son of Kareah, and the army officers with him, and all the people from the least to the greatest, and said to them, This is the word of Yahweh, God of Israel, to whom you sent me with your petition. If you wish to live peacefully in this land, I will build you up and not pull you down. I will plant you and not uproot you, for I will relent of the harm I did you. You are afraid of the king of Babylon, but do not fear him, word of Yahweh, for I am with you to save you and rescue you from his hand. I will put mercy in his heart, so that he may have mercy on you, and let you live in your own land. But if you say, No, we will no longer live in this land, disobeying the voice of Yahweh your God, and if you say, No, we shall go to Egypt, where we shall no more have wars, or hear the trumpet call, where we shall not be hungry for bread, then hear the word of Yahweh, remnant of Judah. Yahweh, God of hosts and God of Israel speaks. If you turn towards Egypt to go there and stay there, the sword you fear will strike you there in the land of Egypt, and famine which you dread will be yours there in Egypt, and you will die. All those who turn towards Egypt to enter and live there will die by sword, famine, and pestilence. No one will escape or flee from the misfortune that I will bring upon them. This is what Yahweh, God of hosts and God of Israel says. Just as my burning anger was poured out on the people of Jerusalem, so will my fury be poured out on you when you go to Egypt. You will become a curse and a reproach, and you will never again see this place. That is what Yahweh has foretold, O remnant of Judah. Do not go to Egypt. Be quite sure that I have warned you today. You risked your lives when you sent me to Yahweh your God, saying, Pray for us to Yahweh our God, and tell us all that Yahweh says, and we shall do it. I have told you today, though you still do not obey Yahweh your God, in all that He told you through me. Be sure of this. It will be by the sword, famine, and pestilence that you will die in the place where you want to go and live. Jeremiah chapter 43. Jeremiah had hardly finished giving the message of Yahweh to the people, all that Yahweh had sent him to say, when Azariah, son of Hoshea, and Johanan, son of Kareah, and all the arrogant men said to Jeremiah, You are lying. Yahweh our God did not send you to tell us not to go and settle in Egypt. No, Baruch, son of Neriah, is prompting you to hand us over to the Chaldeans, either to be killed or deported to Babylon. So neither Johanan, son of Kareah, nor the army officers, nor the people heeded Yahweh's command to stay in the land of Judah. Instead, Johanan and the army officers led away the remnant of the Jews who had returned to the land of Judah from the nations where they had been driven. They also led away the men, women, children, and the royal princesses, all those that Nebuzaradan, commander of the bodyguard, had left in the care of Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, with Jeremiah the prophet and Baruch, son of Neriah. So in defiance of Yahweh's order, they entered Egypt and arrived at Tahpanhes. There at Tahpanhes, the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah, While the Jews are watching you, take some large stones and bury them in clay in the brick terrace at the entrance to Pharaoh's house at Tahpanhes, and then say to them, This is what Yahweh, God of hosts and God of Israel says. I am sending for my servant Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and he will set his throne over these stones that I have hidden here, and spread a royal canopy. He shall come and strike the land of Egypt, bringing death to those destined to die, captivity for those destined to be taken captive, sword for those destined for the sword. He will set fire to the temples of the Egyptian gods. These gods will be burned or carried away. As a shepherd wraps himself in a cloak, so will the king of Babylon wrap the land of Egypt about himself and depart in safety. He will break the sacred pillars at Heliopolis and burn the temples of the gods in Egypt. Jeremiah chapter 44. A word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah concerning all the Jews living in Egypt, especially in the cities of Migdal, Tahpanhes, and Memphis, as well as in the territory of Patros. You have seen all the disaster that I brought on Jerusalem and the towns of Judah. These are no more than ruins without inhabitants because of the evil they have done. They have provoked my anger by offering incense to foreign gods that neither they nor their fathers knew. I sent them my servants the prophets time and time again to tell them, "Do not do this abominable thing that I detest." But they did not listen or pay attention. They did not turn away from their evil ways or give up worshipping strange gods. Then the fury of my anger was loosed and blazed in the towns of Judah and the streets of Jerusalem, making them the desolate ruins they are today. And now Yahweh, the God of hosts and the God of Israel, asks you, "Why do you bring such great harm on yourselves? Because of your deeds, every man, woman, child, and infant will be taken from Judah, and you will be left without a remnant. Why do you provoke my anger with the work of your hands? Why do you worship foreign gods in Egypt, where you came to live? Surely you will decrease in number and be a curse and an object of reproach among all the nations. Have you forgotten the wickedness of your fathers and the misdeeds of the kings of Judah and its princes, and the evil behavior of your wives in the land of Judah and the streets of Jerusalem? So far they have had no contrition and have not followed my law and my decrees that I set before you and your ancestors. Because of this, Yahweh, God of hosts and God of Israel, warns you, I am turning my face away from you to bring disaster on you and to completely destroy Judah. The remnant of Judah that chose to enter Egypt and live there will all perish. They will be destroyed by the sword and famine and become an object of horror and cursing, of condemnation and reproach. I will punish those in Egypt as I punished Jerusalem with the sword, famine, and pestilence. None of the remnant of Judah that came to Egypt will escape or flee and return to Judah, where you long to go and live. Then all the men who knew their wives were offering incense to foreign gods, and all the women, a great assembly, replied to Jeremiah in a louder voice, As for what you say in the name of Yahweh, we will not listen. We want to do all that we said we wanted to do. Burn incense to the Queen of Heaven and pour out wine to her as we did, we and our fathers, our kings and princes in the towns of Judah and the streets of Jerusalem. Then we had our fill of bread and were prosperous and free from misfortune. But since we stopped burning incense to the Queen of Heaven, we have been in need of everything and have perished by the sword and famine. And the women added, When we offered incense and poured libations to the Queen of Heaven, didn't our husbands know that we made sacrificial cakes decorated with her image? Jeremiah then answered all the people, men and women who had told him this, Is it not better that Yahweh remembered the incense you burned in the towns of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem, you, your fathers, your kings, princes, and all the people? Do you think it slipped his memory? Yahweh could no longer bear the sight of your evil and abominable deeds. That is why your land has become the desolate waste that it is today. All the misfortune that you are suffering today has happened because you burned the incense and sinned against Yahweh by not obeying Him or following His law, His instructions, and His commands. Jeremiah then addressed all the people, especially the women. Listen to Yahweh's message. This is what Yahweh, the God of hosts and the God of Israel says. You and your wives think that what you say with your lips becomes an obligation you must fulfill. You say, we are bound to keep the vows we have made to burn incense and pour out wine to the Queen of Heaven. Go ahead, fulfill your vows and do what you promised. Nevertheless, listen, all you Jews living in Egypt, listen to what Yahweh says to you. By my own great name I swear, word of Yahweh, that throughout Egypt no one from Judah will invoke my name. No one will be left to say, as the Lord Yahweh lives. I am watching over them, but not for their good. All the people of Judah in Egypt will perish by the sword and famine until they are wiped out. Only a few will escape the sword and return from Egypt to Judah. And the remnant who came to settle in Egypt will understand whose word comes true, theirs or mine. And this is the sign that I will punish you in this place, says Yahweh, that you may know that my threatening words to you will be fulfilled. I will hand over the Pharaoh, Hophra, king of Egypt, to his enemies who want to slay him, just as I let Zedekiah, king of Judah, be taken by his adversary, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, who was determined to kill him. Jeremiah chapter 45. These are the words of Jeremiah the prophet to Baruch, son of Neriah, who wrote on a scroll what Jeremiah dictated. It was in the 4th year of the reign of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah, when he said, There is a word of Yahweh for you, Baruch. Why do you complain? Alas for me! I am weary of sighing and I find no rest. Yahweh says, when I am knocking down what I have built and pulling up what I planted, why do you want great things for yourself? Don't look for them. Yet, though I am about to send disaster on everyone, word of Yahweh, you will be safe wherever you go.